Imagine if we went back in time and gave an NFL team a cheat sheet for the draft, telling them exactly who the best players are in the position they are drafting for the first and second rounds, occasionally giving them a little nudge when it comes to free agency and who they shouldn't let go. What would those teams look like now if they were able to always play the draft perfectly? That's what I'm here to try and answer. Today we're looking at the Bills, and the Bills have had a couple of correct picks. Quite a lot of correct picks actually, but as you'll see, some of those have asterisks next to them. Let's jump straight into this with the first pick that they've made. In 2012, 41st pick in the draft, they selected Cordy Glenn, and Cordy Glenn was a correct pick. Then left guard through right guard is all the same. Richie Incognito, Eric Wood, and John Miller. And then for right tackle, in 2014 with the 44th overall pick, the Bills selected Cyrus Kwanjo, and Morgan Moses may have been a better pick in that position. Then for the tight end, it's just Charles Clay, and with that, we can move on to the wide receivers. Okay, so for wide receiver number 1, in 2014, with the 4th overall pick, a pick they actually traded for as well, the Bills selected Sammy Watkins. And now that I would almost say that's a correct pick, I'm calling it a not bad pick, but down to injury history, I'm going to say because there's a bunch of guys that were taken after him that are equally as good, maybe better, depending on what you decide to argue. Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., Allen Robinson, Jarvis Landry. I'm going to say it's not bad, but Mike Evans may have been a better pick in that position. I've gone for him over some of the others purely based on the type of receiver that the Bills were trying to get when they selected Sammy Watkins, and they did get a good receiver. I'm not arguing that, but I would argue Mike Evans might just be a big enough of an upgrade, a little bit with play, a little bit more with injury history, or rather lack of injury history for Mike Evans. So we move on to wide receiver number 2. In 2013, with the 41st overall pick, they selected Robert Woods. Keenan Allen was still available, and then we add the final receiver, Marquise Goodwin, and that would be the Bills receivers here if they had made some slightly different selections. Onto the running back position, and it's just LaShawn McCoy. Why not finish it off before we go into the quarterback with the fullback? There we have Jerome Felton, and then quarterback. We know the Bills have selected a quarterback recently. In 2013, with the 16th overall pick, the Buffalo Bills selected E.J. Manuel, and now here's a list of other quarterbacks they could have taken: Geno Smith, Mike Glennon, Matt Barkley, or Landry Jones. And with that said, that is exactly why Tyrod Taylor is still the starting quarterback. Obviously, behind him, it doesn't matter. E.J. Manuel, Geno Smith, Mike Glennon, Matt Barkley, Landry Jones. You haven't got a starter in that group, so you can say, yes, the Bills made a correct pick, because they couldn't have done much better. So that is the offense for the Bills. A couple of correct picks: left tackle Cordy Glenn, E.J. Manuel technically correct, and then some not so correct picks. Although, like I said, Sammy Watkins wasn't a bad pick whatsoever. But with that out of the way, we can move on to the defense. So free safety, strong safety, no changes. Corey Graham, and I've got Robert Blanton at strong safety, and you'll see why once we get down to the cornerbacks. But before we do that, we're going to do the linebackers. And because of the way the Madden seems to want to call the Bills a 4-3 defense, and to be honest, they may actually be best set to play that, that's what we're going to do here, because otherwise too many players are out of position. Zach Brown at right outside linebacker, Preston Brown at inside linebacker, and Lorenzo Alexander at the other outside linebacker. Now those two outside linebackers are unrestricted free agents right now, and let's just say if they don't sign them, we can just argue that they should have done. Now onto the cornerbacks, and for our first cornerback in 2011, and just saying that, you already know who it's going to be, with the 34th overall pick, the Bills selected Aaron Williams, who actually ended up starting the most games for him at strong safety. That's why Robert Blanton is there instead. But they selected Aaron Williams, could have had Richard Sherman instead. Then for the second cornerback in 2012, with the 10th overall pick, the Bills took Stephon Gilmore at cornerback. Other cornerbacks available after him: Janoris Jenkins, Casey Hayward, Josh Norman. I'm going to call this one the correct pick though. I don't think there's a big enough gap between him and those other cornerbacks to say that the Buffalo Bills made the wrong selection. Stephon Gilmore is the correct pick. And then finally, for the third cornerback, in 2015, with the 50th overall pick, the Bills selected Ronald Darby, and that was the correct pick. And those are the Buffalo Bills cornerbacks. They all have the hair in common. I would love to see all these guys playing on the same team. Let's move on to the final part now, the defensive line, which of course is going to be a 4-3 based defensive line. Our right end is going to be Jerry Hughes. Our left end is going to be Shaq Lawson, because Adolphus Washington on this version again is a defensive tackle. And there's a nice card here for Lawson, so I thought he'd just be nicer to represent that. Onto the defensive tackles, the final ones. In 2011, with the 3rd overall pick, the Buffalo Bills took Marcell Dareus. That was the correct pick. It's outright the correct pick. Anyway, the only other defensive tackle you could take is Jarrell Casey, but Marcell Dareus more of a nose tackle than a defensive tackle, so there's a difference there anyway. But you couldn't have gone wrong taking Marcell Dareus. And to finish the line off, we add Carl Williams there at the bottom. So that is the team, but there is one player missing here, one draft pick missing. That's because in 2013, with the 46th overall selection, the Buffalo Bills took Kiko Alonso. And now, I went and called that the correct pick. They could have had Jamie Collins, the only other decent linebacker there. Kiko Alonso actually was a good player for them, but they traded him away, of course, for LeSean McCoy. So I had to make the decision. Do I say they don't have LeSean McCoy on the team, or do I say they don't have Kiko Alonso, despite that being the correct pick? In some sense, I've not always done it, I don't think, perfectly, but for things like that, when it's a clear player-for-player swap, you kind of have to stick to the rules. If it was a player-for-draft pick, you know, you can kind of overlook that. But because it was LeSean McCoy for Kiko Alonso, LeSean McCoy is on the team, Kiko Alonso is not. But like I said, that probably was a correct pick. Jamie Collins they could have had. Kiko Alonso, when he was there, played very well for them, especially as a rookie. And this is the Buffalo Bills team. If they always had that little eye into the future when it came to picking their players, I would say they're not that bad. Obviously, they've still got some weaker spots. The wide receivers, although the 1 and 2 are great. Marquise Goodwin, a little bit weak. Linebackers, perfect. Safeties, a little bit weaker, especially compared to the cornerbacks and everything else. And really, my favorite part of this entire team is just these triplets down here at the cornerback position.